Hey, what is up, my dudes? How's it going out there? It's your boy S-Rank coming at you again with another movie rant slash review. This time we're going to talk about Alien Covenant, the new sequel to Prometheus and prequel to the Alien franchise. This movie is a pre-sequel. Wrap your mind around that. It's directed by Ridley Scott, who's taking the reins of the Alien franchise again, for better or worse. I guess we'll explore that a little bit more as we go on. There's some fireworks going on in the background here. I don't know if you can hear them. It's Victoria Day weekend. Hopefully it's not too big of a deal. We'll just continue onwards and hope for the best. Yeah, so I saw this movie on Friday, so I had a couple days to think about it a little bit. Come to terms with my thoughts. I enjoyed it while I was watching it. It's a fun-ish movie, I suppose. I have some problems with it. It is a problematic movie in several ways, and it's odd. It's a strange movie. So let's get into the premise of the movie. It's standard sci-fi horror setup. A colonist of travelers, space colonists, are going to populate a new planet. They've headed out into the stars and they're all in cryosleep because it's going to take a long time to get there. When, shockingly, something goes wrong. I can't believe it. Can you believe it? So, Michael Fassbender plays a android character named Walter. He is an updated version, a newer model of the David character from Prometheus. And he is manning the ship and running operations while the crew is in cryosleep. So he has to wake everybody up because he needs help to repair the ship and make sure none of the colonists die while this problem is happening. A solar burst, a burst of solar radiation knocks out their solar wind sails or recharge sails, something along that lines. And James Franco gets burned alive inside of a cryotube. So if you want to see a movie where James Franco gets burned alive inside of a cryostasis tube, this is the movie for you, man. Check it out. It happens near the beginning of the movie. Get your ticket. Go watch him get burned alive. Go out and say, it's not for me. Maybe I'd like to... Can I trade my ticket in for another movie? I didn't enjoy that. But you'll have seen the part that interested you, James Franco getting burned alive, and you can go on with your day. So while they're repairing the ship, they encounter a distress signal. Not necessarily a distress signal, but they get a beacon, a signal from an uncharted planet out there in the solar system. And it appears to be a John Denver song, which they all find odd because there's not supposed to be any humans out here. So they think, we should investigate this signal. And they find out that it's coming from a planet that is even more suited for human life than the planet they were going to go to. And wouldn't you know it, it's right here. We could go to this planet instead of going back into cryostasis for 7 years, which the characters are all a little hesitant to do because James Franco was burned alive, and they don't see that as the gift that the rest of humanity does. I'm just joking. James Franco's fine. I didn't have any problems with him when I met him, but it is what it is. So they go about their days, and they want to go to this planet instead. They forego any sort of protocols they have in place. They're just going to go, why don't we just set up a colony on a new planet? That probably is just something that we can do. So they decide to go to this new planet and investigate. Track down the signal and see if maybe this planet would be a good spot for them to colonize. Shockingly, everything goes wrong for them, and they get murdered. There's a lot of dumb characters in this movie. They show up on this planet. They don't wear hazmat suits or have any environmental protection. They just start poking shit. Like, apparently there's no procedure or protocol in place, even though they mentioned several times that they've been trained. They were training to go to this planet to live there and set up a colony and terraform it. But they get on this planet and they just they start messing with all the ecology. Well, what's going on with these spores? Let's poke them. And then the alien spores get in their body and they incubate, and everyone starts getting murdered by aliens. So that's problematic. A lot of the characters are dumb as a post. But it's a horror movie. Characters are always going to be dumb as a post, I suppose. If you can get past the characters making stupid choices, there's some enjoyment to be had. But so they track down the signal and they find this signal was made by Dr. Shaw, Noomi Rapace's character from Prometheus. And eventually, through the course of events, where they're trying to get back to their ship explodes because they're stupid, and they start firing at the alien and they blow their own ship up. And then David shows up. Michael Fassbender's character. He's dressed like a Jedi. He's got his Jedi hood on. He's dressed like Mark Hamill from the end of The Force Awakens, and he saves them, and he takes them back to his lair that he set up on the planet. So this is where the movie starts to become a little schizophrenic. And then while you're watching it, you're going to notice that it feels like two separate movies. It feels like a sequel to Prometheus and a prequel to Aliens. And they're mashed together without much artistry. And you can see the seams of both movies. And it's distracting. So the it's trying to course correct from Prometheus without ever acknowledging that it made a wrong turn or a mistake with Prometheus. And just I'm going to make a tangent here and say that I personally enjoyed Prometheus. But the general consensus is that Prometheus was a mistake, so they want to get back to the roots of Alien. But they don't want to say that they made a mistake with Prometheus. So everything that you didn't like from Prometheus, all those themes, they're back in play here, and they're more important than the Alien stuff. And the Alien stuff is all... It's not... I don't want to say it's bad, but it is an inferior version of everything we've seen in the Alien franchise before. They don't tread any new water. They don't break any new ground. If you were just thinking, what happens in an Alien movie, this is what they have here. It's been done better in the past, but here it is again. It's a cinematic equivalent of Leftovers, you know? I don't know what to say about it. It's not... I'm making it sound worse than it is. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just mediocre. It's just steady. It's everything you expect and nothing more. Who's the Ripley character? Here she is. Her name's Daniels. She's a woman and she's tough. I'll fill the role of Ripley. Oh no, an alien. What do we do? Exactly what they did in all the Alien movies before. So there's that. So you'll be watching the movie, if you're like me, thinking that the most interesting stuff happening in the movie is all the plot points carried over from Prometheus. Michael Fassbender is the most interesting character in the movie. He is... Spoilers, he's the villain. He's the protagonist. And he's 1,000,000 times more terrifying than the xenomorphs. He's a complete psychopath. At the end of Prometheus, Dr. Shaw, Noomi Rapace's character, and David, Michael Fassbender's character, they go out into the cosmos to find the architects, the race of beings that propagated life throughout the universe and created these bioweapons and were going to destroy life. And they want to know why. Why were you going to destroy your creation? And Fassbender shows up and he just commits genocide and he wipes this planet out. He unleashes their own weapons against them and he kills everyone in sight. And then he continues their work. He wants to perfect this creature, this perfect killing machine, the xenomorph. that we would ultimately end up being the xenomorph that we know. He kills Shaw's character off screen. She gets nuded, as if you get the reference from the new character from Aliens to Alien 3. She gets killed, so she's died in between the two movies. It seems as though maybe she was exposed to a face hugger and used as an incubator for a xenomorph-esque creature. Maybe not maybe a precursor to that. Maybe one of these white creatures we see before, but unlikely because they come from a spore. But that's what David is doing. David has been experimenting in this necropolis. He lives alone in this crypt, and he's just trying to create the perfect killing machine. And he's a lunatic, but he's amazing. He's chewing. Michael Fassbender is chewing up the scenery. He interacts a lot with himself. The David and Walter characters have a lot of interactions with some odd sexual tension, and he kisses himself. So, if you want to see Michael Fassbender kiss himself, this is also the movie for you. James Franco burned alive. Michael Fassbender makes out with himself. Ay, 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 go buy those tickets. But he's great. Michael Fassbender is amazing in this movie. But is it a problem that in an Alien movie, something other than the alien is more terrifying than the alien? You're gonna have to decide for yourself. The alien parts are the weakest parts of the movie, to me, and Michael Fassbender is far and away the strongest part of the movie. Ideally, aliens would be the best part of the Alien movie, or at least a relevant, important element in the movie, but they're not. They could be cut out entirely, and it would be a stronger movie. This is a problem. This is the problem with Alien Covenant and Prometheus as well. Is a problem that pops up a lot in fiction in general, which is people always, for whatever reason, they want to answer questions that don't need to be answered. What's the backstory of the alien? How did the xenomorph get created? Who cares? Why is that something that we need to know? Why can't they just exist? If you made a movie about a bear killing somebody, we wouldn't want a sequel where we found out how do bears exist. We don't give a fuck. Evolution made bears somehow, and that's good enough for me. Does there need to be this grandiose Machiavellian plot where this evil scientist character created aliens based on the work of godlike alien species before? It's like there's like 4 steps here that don't need to exist. Why? What is this? What does this bring to the franchise that improves it at all? Now, that's not, like I said, I enjoyed Prometheus, but Prometheus isn't called Alien Prometheus. It's just called Prometheus. I can look at that as a separate thing, and I can understand there's a story with some merit. Like, there's a reason to tell that story that doesn't need to be tied into Alien at all. But for marketing reasons, they decided that's what they wanted to do. And they're continuing that on here. But why? What does it bring to the aliens? It doesn't bring anything to the Alien franchise. It distracts from it. And the Alien franchise is a freaking weight on the leg of all this other stuff. Just dragging it down. They're 2 competing franchises that are fighting with each other, but they're trying to be one coherent thing. And they're not. Odd. So the movie is supposed to be going back to the horror roots. If you've seen the trailer, they're playing up more of the horror elements, but that doesn't really come into play in the movie at all. The horror doesn't really work. More fireworks in the background here, Victoria Day. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's some body horror that's pretty cool. Really gnarly stuff. if you're into that. But just from a traditional horror standpoint, they dropped the ball there. You know, Alien and Aliens, they kind of had to work within the confines of what they could do at the time the films were made. There were limitations with actors in prosthetic makeup being the aliens and maybe some and practical effects. But now with CGI, they can just make a CGI alien and they can have it do whatever the fuck they want. Wasn't the case originally. If they had to play with light and shadow and suspense and build tension, and a lot of the time the alien isn't on screen. It's the characters, they're scared of, you show the fear of the characters, and that translates to the audience back. They empathize with this fear of the unknown, the fear of the unseen. Those limitations don't exist anymore, so a lot of the times they just forego all the tension and suspense, and they just have a CGI alien running down a corridor or fighting with a crane arm. There's a scene maybe 1/3 of the way through the movie where they're confronted with these proto-aliens on the planet. They're white and they have spines on their back. And they're in a wheat field, and it kind of plays like Ghost in the Darkness or something, where the lions are stalking people in across the plains. So they're playing, you know, with they play a little bit there with the tension and suspense, because you can't see where they are. They're hidden, they're obscured in the wheat. But that scene is very, very short. It doesn't last very long. Yeah, so the horror isn't the biggest element of this movie. It's not really what it's trying to go for. It's picking up the central themes of Prometheus. And David is carrying on those plot points. And they name drop them all. Like, they drop their influences all the time. They're name dropping Milton and Paradise Lost and Shelley and Prometheus, the Modern Frankenstein, and Ozymandias, and they name drop Lord Byron. So the themes of the movie are like, they're not subtle. We know what David's trying to convey. And he is a terrifying character because he's a complete psychopath. And I don't know, like, I guess you can't necessarily project human morality onto a android. I'm going to, because he's a humanoid creature. So you want to personify him a little bit and attribute him with human characteristics and motives. But it's really interesting because he's the one that name drops all those things I just said, or people do it to him. So he's the one that's involved in all these conversations. But he doesn't necessarily recognize that he is going down the same path of these characters that he's well aware of. Like, he doesn't necessarily recognize that he is Victor Frankenstein. Which I guess makes sense in a lot of ways, because, you know, you have that hubris as an important element. And David is just so convinced of his superiority and how much far above humanity he is that he can't even contemplate him falling into the same traps and pitfalls of this character. The same thing that happened to his own creator. And you would think ultimately that the path forward is pretty clear, and that ultimately David will be he'll fall victim to his own hubris, and he'll ultimately get killed or destroyed by his own creation. Doesn't happen in this movie, so at least one more movie before that happens, and probably more, because the continuity right now is a mess. It's a complete mess, and eventually they have to steer it back so that it makes sense, so Alien can happen, because David creates the facehuggers through his genetic experimentations. But he's not on the planet that Ripley's on anymore. And he's not going back to that planet at the end of this movie. He's going off to a third planet. He's going off to the planet the colonists in Alien Covenant were originally planning to go to at the beginning of the movie. So he's heading off there with 2,000 colonists to continue his experimentations and perfect the facehugger, presumably make a queen alien, because we haven't seen that yet. But eventually, he has to get back to the planet from Prometheus to put the facehugger eggs there. Why? Like I said, it's just so convoluted. It doesn't, and it never needed to be this way. Why? Why couldn't there just be aliens on that ship? And that's what they were. And who knows where they came from, and we never need to know. But here we are. And we're going to need multiple movies to explain how we get to where we're supposed to be. Ah! Don't think about it too much, or your mind will explode. So, it seems to me the crew of this movie is pretty awful. They're forgettable. I remember, like, Danny McBride's character's name, Tex, I guess, no, Tennessee. I think he's called Tennessee. I don't remember the names of everyone except for possibly Danny McBride, if his character's name is Tennessee, and Daniels, who is the stand-in for Ripley. She's bargain brand Ripley, President's Choice. Doesn't have any of the Ripley qualities, but here she is. She has no agency at all in this story. But here she is. Enjoy. She's supposed to be Ripley, but she's not. She's just going to make you wish Ripley was there. They're dumb characters. You'll find them frustrating. And it's, I don't know, it's a shame. But, yeah, I don't know. Michael Fassbender is amazing. I think a movie is worth watching just for his performance. But there's a ton of plot holes. The characters make stupid decisions. The timeline and continuity of the Alien franchise is so muddled and convoluted now that it makes virtually no sense. Here we are. Sorry, Neil Blomkamp, who wanted to do an Alien movie. We don't need you. We have Ridley Scott back. He's